So when I do the work, it's coming from a whole nother level of passion and commitment. I truly feel like the work that I've done within the communities of Houston, learning the skills to articulate yourself when you have certain issues, knowing how to address trauma that you never dealt with before, having certain particular conversations with people that are difficult to have conversations with, but finding a medium to be able to do that. These are what the restorative practices that have helped me do. What's up, y'all? How y'all doing? Welcome to the podcast, Translating Success. I'm your boy, Carlos Malave, and this is my co-host, DeAndre Hilton, man. Say what up, man.
Man, it messed me up, son.
I said it wrong?
Hinton, son.
Oh,
Hinton.
my bad. Can we start over?
This is fun.
Yeah, so we just
This is fun.
So we just start over?
Son,
We just started over?
this is no starting over.
Hold on, we can't pause
son.
it?
No,
This
son.
is live? No way.
Hey.
Alright, so the first one. Alright, so once again,
It's gonna be fun to look
my
at.
name is, my bad about that. My name is Carlos Malave, and this is
Dre.
Let's go with Dre. Alright, so basically, this is the podcast Translating Success. We did an interview on Dre's last podcast, which was called
Sit Down.
The Sit Down. And in that podcast, we came up with the idea. Me and Dre have been boys for a couple years now. We worked together at Yes Prep, and then we've been cool ever since. So we decided to come up. He's been trying to get me on this podcast thing for a couple years now.
Do a podcast on your own.
He wanted me to do a podcast for a while. So he connected me to his boy Trey that has everything set up, and I decided like, yo, let's just do it together. So that's why we here now. So with that, you know what I mean? We here. The whole idea of translating success is about getting those conversations going about masculinity and what success looks like for men on different perspectives and everything like that. So we'll be covering all different topics like that in regards to success. So with that, I just want to give Dre the floor to talk about what he's been up to and what he's about.
Man, I'm just a teacher.
Okay.
That's all I've been up to, man. Just teaching these kids. And
Okay. Where you teach at?
I'm at an elementary school over in West Houston, Ashford Elementary.
Okay.
I have a special education behavior class, and it's actually fun for me. Like one of my students the other day, like we were sitting down after school, waiting on his ride, and he just randomly just started asking me questions like, Mr. Henry, you like teaching? And I'm like, yeah, I really do like teaching my class. And he was like, you like being a teacher? And I was like, yeah. I was like, why? You want to be a teacher? He was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, I think so. Yeah, because he was kind of like, still thinking. Like, he was like, yeah, I think so. I was like, why you want to be a teacher? He was like, because you a teacher.
Ah.
Like, you know what I mean?
I like that.
Like, dang. Like, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you represent something bigger.
This is like not only a kid going from I hate school, getting put out on school, coming to me, to not only like control his behavior, for the most part, but like looking to help other kids do the same thing.
That's what's up, man.
So yeah, that's pretty cool, man. Other than that, I'm here at APR. You know what I mean, doing what I can. Like you said, we got a show I do called The Sit Down, of course. Shout out to coming through. But we typically, it's like a interview type style show where the person that I'm talking with gets a chance to say who they are, what they're about, speak on their business or whatever their cause is, and a lot of times it gets personal. People tend to speak on things, personal experiences and lessons that they learn from it.
Yeah.
We always touch on mental health and the importance of seeking more understanding on the subject. We got several shows to name, on the APR list
Okay.
of shows produced. I think we are approaching or already may have hit 300
Yeah, yeah.
hours of original content recorded.
That's,
So it's been a roller coaster, man.
so
It started last year in October, so we're coming up on a year.
yeah,
Um, I mean, it taught us a lot,
yeah,
like about business and about people you work with. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? But it's been a cool learning experience. You
yeah,
know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Definitely led to bigger things. Led us here.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And I know you got some stuff coming up that we're gonna do some work on too. So
yeah, yeah,
you know what I mean? Just this year, like I said, it's changed a lot.
yeah,
Like from where we began as a group, or even started as a group, and ended up being a 2-man, 3-man, you know, show.
word, word,
Trying to keep up with everything that we got planned and scheduled and got going. So
word, word.
um, yeah.
And I mean, I could vouch once I joined the A. There's a sign is up here. APR group has been nothing but movement, and everything been flowing well. I connected with Trey, which is Dre's boy that he connected me to. He was telling me to come by a bunch of times, and it was just we connected once we met, and we just talked about ideas and just flowed off of that. But back to what you said about the student that you talked to in your school, and he said he wanted to be a teacher
Hmm.
because he saw you. And this is what the podcast is about. Translating success, right? What does that look like? Where does that come from? And it's mainly from that premise. Like we representing something bigger.
Hmm.
Me and Dre worked in the education system together and for years separately. But we witnessed this and we felt that for me personally, I connect with that what you said because I know I represent something bigger, right? Something like that kids can see themselves in me and can work towards something different that they didn't know they could. For me, growing up, I had my coaches that what I mean, um, they represented that for me. I seen my coach come in the hood like with a suit on and just get respect from everybody, and it just clicked right there. Like, oh, I could do that. And you could get respect, and you could talk proper, and you can do this, and you can still go into different environments, and still, what I mean, be yourself, right? But be able to go in different spaces and still, do that. And it was like so cool to me. And that's why I got into education and pushing that forward. Um, so yeah, I'm with that. And the thing with me, the whole reason we came up with this show together, I'm a motivational speaker, author, and now this past year, I was at Kip Houston High School, and I quit my job to start my business full time. I've been building my brand for 5 years, and well, I'm speaking all over the place, building content and getting my name out there, all over the place. And then I just finally took the leap and I started my business, Translating Success LLC. That's where the title for the podcast came from. And to go back on it, I wrote about this in my book. I grew up in a bilingual household where I grew up speaking two different languages, Spanish and English. And I realized very early that two words can look totally different but mean the same thing. And then as I was growing up, I started to notice me and my siblings uh, started to, you know, be different in school. I was more of the athlete and the social butterfly. My siblings were the academics, right? I couldn't get, I wasn't, I was C plus, B minus. And my mom told me she just knew I'll get it done, but it just wasn't gonna be like straight A's. My brother was straight. I think my brother was a 4.0 student, and my sister was a 4.3 student. So they were just straight like superstars in the classroom. But as we grew older, I started to see that my success didn't have to look like their success, right? But I had to see that it was successful. I had to see that my path and my what I was doing was success as well, right? And that's where it came from, and that's the premise of this podcast, my book, and what I speak about. Translating success is finding different avenues and ways to see success in what we do, right? And build confidence in people in our audience um, to do the same. So that's where it comes from. And you know, what I mean, I wanted. I know we spoke about this before, but was there a moment where it clicked for you, like something translated for you, like that, you know, worked for you, and you didn't see it that way before, and then it just clicked, and then you went with it?
Mm, like, it's hard for me to point out one
Yeah,
because of the fact that I feel that that's what my entire position is like revolved around, right? Because um, just looking at the format of
yeah,
how a student even gets to me, right? It's um, they start acting up. They get them evaluated. They diagnose them, send them to my class, say, hey, you now have behavior goals you need to meet, and these goals need to meet. When they get out of my class, or if they're successful at meeting those goals and they get out of my class, they go to a different teacher back in the
gotcha,
regular education,
gotcha,
right?
gotcha, gotcha.
If they do good, great job, teacher.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
nothing to do with me.
yeah, yeah.
So you, it's almost like if someone in my position has to translate their own success because
Ah,
it like there's no way to like see it.
yeah, yeah,
Like you can't measure it,
yeah,
right? So it's like, for instance, you work with a student and their grades were low,
yeah,
right? No one could understand why their grades were low, but you actually got to know that student, and then you either changed their life or remotivated them to even
yeah, yeah,
start doing
yeah.
it.
Gotcha.
Well, they go back to class, they're going to get higher grades. Great job, teacher, for teaching great.
Yeah, yeah,
It has nothing to do with the person who really turned that kid around, right? So, and considering that most of my students, I mean, I want to say 98, 99% of them are going to be silver grade levels below.
yeah,
So in school, when academic success is typically the only measurement of success,
yeah,
and most of my kids are already coming to me several grades level down with behavior issues.
yeah,
You see what I'm saying? It's like the standard way of being able to dictate success or measure success,
yeah,
I can't go by.
yeah, yeah.
It's special education, so they have their own plan.
Gotcha, gotcha,
And,
gotcha.
so, like I said, the moral to the story is that, it's almost every day.
Something you do, you see it
Yeah.
all the time. All
Because
right, got you.
unless, or else you'll face it every day knowing that you're not going to be successful when you're using a standard level of
Yeah, yeah,
measuring
yeah,
that success. And then it's going to drive you crazy. You're going to end up quitting because it's
yeah,
like coming to work every day just to fail,
yeah, yeah,
right? Like if that kid isn't, recognized academically, then you failed.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's typically how it is, right?
yeah,
Bad teacher if the kid has bad grades.
yeah,
So when you're diagnosed or when there's other um, things affecting
yeah,
the learning, right? Learning disabilities or behavior or could be a mental disorder, or medical, whatever it is, right?
yeah,
Which I've experienced all of those throughout the years of teaching in the behavior class.
yeah,
Like you will see students with the medical issues that will also have emotional issues. See students with extremely brilliant academically, but have control issues and
yeah.
compulsiveness and can't, control their reactions. Not
Word,
necessarily their
word.
temper, but reacting to a specific thing.
Yeah,
Um, then you got students with learning disabilities, dyslexia. No matter how hard you try, those letters aren't going to look right, and
yeah,
you're not
yeah.
going to be able to read something.
Word.
You know, so all kind of barriers
Yeah,
that these kids got to overcome,
yeah, yeah,
and you're always constantly battling back and forth because you want those students to be successful and feel successful,
yeah,
and knowing that the only, not the only, but the biggest the easiest way to identify success in school is academically, and knowing that some of those disorders or some of those obstacles that they have to go through are always going to be there, and making it a little bit tougher for them to show success.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to create success for them too.
Word,
You got
word.
to show. You got to be able to set them up for success, however they see it,
Yeah,
because they've already been unsuccessful when they got put to my class in the
yeah,
first place.
yeah,
Right? That's unsuccessful being kicked out of school.
yeah. I think.
So you got to reinvent
Yeah,
what
yeah,
success
yeah,
is
yeah,
and how they see it. So you know, um, you'll have some traction. It could be um, from I actually finally learned how to tie my shoe to I can read a book
yeah,
without no help to I was able to sit still for longer than 30 minutes without jumping up,
yeah.
you know, having an episode.
Sure, sure.
So you have to create some form of success,
Yeah, and I think
man.
I think that's key because like I think your background helps you um get to that point faster because doing special education, like getting kids to doing a different form of education where kids are getting it and getting to the point of learning, right? But it'll look differently than other classes. In my background too, I taught all different subjects, health, seminar classes is like college readiness class and high school readiness class, and then PE. So like, and I kind of like formed my own throughout the years. I formed my own way of teaching where I made things physical, active, interactive. Because I believe for me, I learned through motion, right? And I believe kids like they learn by doing, right? More often. So I definitely agree with that and trying to help kids. And I think the main thing you said is helping kids translate it themselves, getting them to the point where they can believe that they can do it themselves. It's not taking full credit like you did that as a teacher, as an educator. It's about like getting the students to like believe in themselves that they are capable because they are. It's all about giving them those avenues to believe for them to see, and then they can do it themselves. And I think that's key, and I think that's beautiful, and I think that's what we're trying to do here with this podcast and the work that I'm doing and what I'm striving for. And to go back for me, uh, to go way back where it started for me, I think playing sports. I was a basketball player. Um, I played college ball and everything, but before then, it hit me in high school where with discipline, like the discipline I was putting in ball, like when I would get up at like 4 a.m. and go shoot jump shots before school, jump in the shower, go to school with a ball, and then after school I'll shoot before practice, go to practice, shoot after practice. Like it was just like natural for me just to continue to do it because I liked it so much, and I was learning through it. When I was shooting, I was finding different ways to like angle myself, tuck in my elbow, follow through, let it go off my fingertips, and just finding different ways to like make it more interesting for myself. And I started like connecting the dots back in high school where I was like, um, okay, like if I put the same effort I do in ball, I will be able to do it if I could put the same effort in my classes, right? Just make it fun for myself. Like find ways. Like I'll be at the park, for example. I'll get bored shooting, and I'll be like, "Yo, I'm acting like I'm playing against somebody." Because I heard Michael Jordan, talk about like he got to the point in his career where he was playing against himself, and that really caught my attention. I was like, "Oh, like he when he competes, he competing about himself. He's not comparing himself to anybody else." So I started taking that literally when I was at the park by myself and there was nobody there yet. I would like compete against myself. Like I'm playing against myself. I'm talking to myself. I'm seeing moves and how I would play myself. So I was doing that. And then I took that premise to the classroom, right? And I started like talking to myself and seeing how I would like do things, right? And make it fun. Like how would I make this at an activity, right? How can I make, for example, in college it really hit off. And I was in this history class, and I'm bad with memory. Let me not say I'm not bad with memory. I I used to like to say that, right? But I just had to find something that clicked and how to make it fun for me. So what I did was, me and my boys were in the dorm, and we started rapping the study guide and like making the song to like we
Mm.
making beats like in 1874, bam, bam, bam. And then like I remembered everything that was on the study guide. I remember I was at
Mm-hmm.
the test. I was like, what the hell is this? And I made a beat, right? And I'm like, oh, and I started reciting it, right? So it clicked for me. And I was like, I just gotta make it fun. So every study guide, everything that I did in the school had to be interactive. I started like making friends just to do that. I find the smartest group and I'll be like, yo, we're gonna be friends by we make it fun, and I'll learn from it. I'll just continue asking
Mm-hmm.
questions till I got it, right? Because I was trying to like on the court, I was trying to figure it out for myself, like find different ways. Like if that ain't make no sense how to do that, I will find a different way to understand it. But I had to get the right people around me to like help me. Like and in basketball, I always asked the old heads in the park or people that had more experience than me, and I always learn from them. So like I took that as when I'm in the class with kids that are getting A's in these classes, those are the OGs, right? Like I'm going up to them. I'm learning the game. So I connected the dots, and that's where everything started translating even more. And I got through college. I did much better in college than I did in high school, like much better. And it was a big fact. It was a big part to do with me translating it and then making it interesting for me. So, and I think if kids could just get to that space on as a whole, and even schools, like educators and across the line, like get to that point of like being able to find ways to do that more often, it'll make it easier for students to go through school, especially early on.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like with us, sometimes we get in places where you know there's not many of us educators that stay
Mm-hmm.
in the business. And then I'm an example that I just started my own business, but stay in education for long. Um, the ones that represent something for these kids, right? Like came from those same neighborhoods, taught the same lingo, and then was able to build themselves into these people that these kids can look up to and look at. Oh, I can do that as a profession, right? But getting to a place where we have a bigger understanding of getting more educators to get to that point, right? And then staying, right? And keeping those teachers there is it should be the premise. You know what I mean? So yeah, man. But that's dope. And so like back on discipline, um, how was discipline for you, growing up? Like how did you look at that? And I'm not talking about like discipline like you get in trouble with your moms and pops. Like I'm talking about like discipline as in like you putting in time to get stuff done for yourself, like self discipline. How did it? How was it for you?
I had a problem with prep.
Yeah,
Like, like when I never understood it until like later on in life why
yeah,
this was the way it was. But for me, like for example, studying for something. Like if I study for a week, I'm not gonna do good
yeah.
because like I'm most likely gonna overthink it because I'm studying for so
So it's like you
long to
building
get it.
anxiety through the whole process.
When I study the night before and that's it,
It just clicked.
it's easier.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so I what I mean, like I always thought it was something wrong because you were told
It
to
had
keep
to be
study,
a
study.
certain
You
way.
had to study and
Yeah,
study.
yeah,
And so I'm like, but I'm not doing good when I keep studying and studying and studying. I'm only doing good when I only have a little bit of time to even do it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I have to like it just
Real quick,
but
that was crazy because I had a boy that he didn't even study. He was just like he'll be in class, he'll understand everything in class. He never study and pass every test. So it's crazy you said that, and I used to be like, yo, that's freaking weird. How you do that? He got to be cheating, but he wasn't. And it's crazy. It works different for
yeah.
different people.
What I read it was a book, Super Brain.
Super brain.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that was a book. Um, and matter of fact, that same book I had bought for a couple of students when they graduated
Yeah,
AES
yeah,
prep. But um, it did talk about like what happens when the pressure's on,
yeah,
right? Like even in ball, like you notice certain players when the game's on the line, or it's a totally different animal
yeah, yeah.
when it's
Comes out.
crunch
Yeah,
time. Like either when you have to score or when you have to defend. like when it's all when the game's on the line.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like when I would wait to the last minute, knowing that the test is tomorrow, my focus is different.
It was crunch time.
For me, it was crunch
Yeah,
time, so it was like
yeah,
my
yeah.
focus on what I was doing was totally different. Like
Think
even
about
when I
that.
was
That's
in
dope.
college, like to having papers due,
Yeah.
I would always, I don't care if it's 10 pages. If I do it the
And
night
you be able to
before,
crush it. You like
I'm able
understand. You
to
like
sit in because I know I have no choice.
ah.
When
So
I
prep.
start
So you just
5 days ago, I know okay, I still got 3 more days.
so
All
you
right,
deal
I still
better with
got to
pressure. You deal better with pressure.
deal better with that.
Ah.
So, like that kind of like I was like okay when I read that and I was like okay that must be
Yeah, yeah,
what happens right like in something's online and so also when I'm kind of like what you were talking about when you rapped
yeah, yeah,
and it kind of made things click for you.
yeah.
For me, it's like putting a bigger picture together.
Hmm.
So if I know the point of the class, it's almost easier for me to get through the class,
Ah, got you, got
right? Like a lot of times that's tough in remedial
you.
classes, like
Yeah,
because there's no end to algebra, right? You
yeah,
never
yeah,
learn it all. Like there's always something else and something else, but
yeah,
of course you condense it for school.
yeah, yeah,
But like it's never ending.
yeah,
So like for me I have to like I guess when you get more in higher education like in
yeah,
college or whatever and you're actually taking classes for a specific purpose,
yeah,
it got easier for me in college, especially like when I went for my master's to understand certain things because I understood why we had to do it.
yeah,
I understood the whole point of the class, or I understood the point of the lesson is to learn this.
yeah,
So everything is going to add up to that.
yeah, yeah,
So once I see the end game, it's clear for me. So studying sometimes like it would simply be me. Okay, I can read a couple of things and understand that if it leads to this,
it'll be,
this, or if there's a specific theme, if the reason why they're showing us this is because they want us to think more ethically. All right, cool.
yeah,
So
yeah.
now I'm looking for the more ethical moments or the ethical points in
Ah,
everything that I'm reading,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Versus
yeah.
the technical things.
Ah, man, that.
So yeah, like so for me, like it was almost like being natural or and let it
Mm.
flow. Like let me see the test and let me kind of put things together once I see the test versus
You was better
study the
than me.
whole time.
You was better than me.
Now,
I
don't get
couldn't
me
do that.
wrong. I'm not saying I was a straight A student.
No, no, no. I
You
got you. I
know what I'm
got you.
saying? It's
But
just it was just easier. Like when I like even when I messed up, when I
yeah,
finally clicked, it wasn't because of studying. It was
yeah,
because eventually I know, okay, I got to make this happen,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
something else clicks once that pressure hits.
I couldn't do that. Like for me, um, I dealt great with pressure after being prepared. Like I would be I hit like 3 game winners in high school, like legit game winners, like big games that, and I was always calm and collected in those moments. But I realized I wasn't always like that. It became from the confidence I built from the preparation that I've done. Like I calloused my mind from like calloused my game to like constantly work on it to the point where I was so confident. Like I knew it was going in. I knew what I was doing at that point. And I think I had to get to that point in college where I had to find a way to like make it interesting for me to prepare properly. For me, I had to like, you know what I mean? And I found it easier once I was able to do that and the classes became easier. It became more enjoyable. I realized being there, no matter how, you know, the teacher would teach the class or the professor may teach a class, I could find um, a way to make myself interested in the content through engagement and connecting with others and connecting it to subjects that I understand. And I think that was a process of being in the course and then like learning along the way. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to, you know what I mean? Uh, I'm a different learner than you are. I had to like fully be engaged throughout and then like build my confidence up to walk into a class or a test and be able to do that. But I bring that up with discipline because I noticed like with ball and with school, like it made life easier. Like I wanted to be good at ball. I wanted to stop getting teased because I wasn't naturally that good. I was smaller. Um, I wasn't that fast. I couldn't jump out the building. And I was around a lot of big athletes. Like there was dudes in my neighborhood that was 6'5", could dribble, shoot, dunk. You know, what I mean, do it all, right? And I was playing against that competition in my neighborhood constantly. Dudes that could have played overseas or could have played professionally, but didn't make it that far. And I was constantly going up against that since I was like 12. And I was the type of kid that I always played with the old heads. Like I always played against. I figured I'd just get beat down till I, beat them down, right? And go like that. So, like I started noticing me disciplining myself to get up, to put in the work when nobody's watching, made life easier. Not only on the court when I was able to prove myself, but also when I walk in the streets because it built my confidence in me to be like, yo, like I do this. Like I'm not getting timid when I'm walking to the park or when I'm going places they like, because what people would say because I'm building the confidence. And I know there's the same thing was with school. Like I built that confidence. Like I know my stuff. Like I figured it out. Like I'm walking around with my chest, my head held high and my chest out because I feel like I know what I'm doing now. And I think is just getting to that point and actually seeing that discipline actually leads to happiness. You know what I mean? And that's what I meant. I know you saw my notes earlier and you don't want to ask that, but that's what I meant by that. You want to hear it in the podcast. That's what I meant by discipline means happiness because it actually gets you to a place where you build that confidence and then you're able to focus on what's most important, right? And you don't get distracted easily because of all the work that you put in gave you that space to actually be happy and enjoy the process, right? So like when I started going to the parks more often, it became more enjoyable because I was I wasn't feeling the pressure of like, oh my God, everybody's coming. I don't know what I've been doing. I slacked off a couple weeks. Are they gonna kill me this week? Or this guy embarrassed me last week because I wasn't prepared. But I was fully prepared where I was able to enjoy the process. So I'm going to the park and I'm just like competing against myself, right? It wasn't like all the stuff like that I was worried about. It was me competing against myself because I've done it over and over and over again. And once I translated that to the classroom, the sky was the limit.
Hmm.
And then I translated it to everything. Like now, as a father, as a husband, as a son, as a professional, like I translate that to even as a friend, like the discipline, putting in the time, like the simple things, asking the right questions, and you know what I mean? It all translates. And that's what I'm talking about with translating success. It all connects, right? Like when I have conversations with and by no means am I perfect. And I'm pretty sure Dre said it too. He's not perfect. And we're not talking from a place of perfect. I think we're extremely flawed, and that's why that's why we're able to have these conversations. Because I have conversations with my wife constantly where I'm learning. Like there's times that I slip up, right, and then in that moment, what do I do? Right? Do I discipline myself to open up and take the information of what I wasn't doing, what I was doing wrong, and then learning how to do it right. Like asking the right question. Same thing I was doing in the courts and when I was in the classrooms, right? I didn't, if I didn't get it by just talking, I learned by doing, right? So I'll be like, I have my wife walk me through it, right? Like, how do I do it, right? Whether, and it's something simple like how to clean up, um, or how to, how to season the chicken, right? I'll be throwing mad seasoning on it, right? So it'd be real salty. And this is real recent. Like I made chicken this morning. Well, this afternoon. Um, this entrepreneurial life got me. Yo, I never cooked in my whole entire life. Like I've always, my mom cooked, my grandparents cooked, my father cooked, and every girlfriend I had could cook. Even the one in college, like could cook. So I had no reason to learn how to cook. And my wife, she could cook and she could cook the best. So I always had no reason to cook. So we've been together going on 8 years now, married too. No, married, about to be 3.
Nice.
And right, I never had no reason to cook, but now that I got the time, I disciplined my mind. I was like, yo, like, okay, and it just takes that first time, right? I'm like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I've never done this. I'm nervous. I'm scared, and that's natural, right? I used to get those feelings on the court. I used to get those feelings in the class before I put in the work, and then I just did it. And I started like trying different things, YouTube. You know what I mean? Trying different things, and the first couple meals were good. And I really believe in beginner's luck to make you build that confidence happens, and then after that, you start getting the flaws, and you got to figure it out. So
Mm-hmm.
I had beginner's luck, and I got a lot of confidence through that. I always used to watch my wife through here and there, so I picked it up and watched
Mm-hmm.
YouTube videos, made my own spices and stuff like that. But recently, I've been heavy-handed on the seasoning, right?
Heavy
So
handed, huh?
heavy-handed. So it been coming out a bit, on the saltier side. It's good. It's edible. But it's
Edible.
on the it's no. It's
You won't
flavorful, but
die.
no. It's well, I wouldn't say that
Maybe
because
you will.
that's what I'm saying. Like
It's a warning. I'm not responsible if you die.
Nah, trust me. The food is good. Like it's edible, but it's more like we're getting older. We're in our 30s now, and you know what I mean. The more salty stuff you eat ain't good for you.
Right.
So like we trying to shy away from that. But I've been heavy handed, and my wife been telling me. So like she told me today she was like, yo, like I think I'm gonna need to walk you through this, like how much seasoning you need to put so it don't come out, too much. And I'm like, and right in that moment, you can either get pissed and be like, yo, what the blah blah blah, you don't appreciate I cooked, I worked hard, blah blah, or you could just be in that moment, okay, when all right, I'll be there. So I'm gonna learn, right? And that's
I'm
how
gonna be there.
yeah, I'm gonna
Where
be
else you
there.
gonna be there?
I'm just saying, I ain't gonna run away from the moment, right? I'm gonna be in that moment,
Alright.
and I'm gonna watch her put the proper amount of seasoning on that chicken, right? And watch how she puts it on, lays it on, flips it, put on the other side, 'cause you gotta get all sides, right? Then you gotta stab. I learned this from my wife. You gotta stab it so the seasonings go deep, right? So and go down into the bone, right? So, but I've been heavy-handed, so I'm gonna watch her, and I'm gonna discipline my mind to like watch it and then practice it, and then practice it till I got confidence. Where when people asking, random people asking, do you know how to cook? I'm gonna be like, hell yeah, I know how to cook. You know what I
Let
mean?
me ask you something though.
Yeah,
Like, I guess like when you're speaking of, we have to make that decision in that moment. Like,
yeah,
am I
yeah,
gonna defend myself? Or I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
listen, right? So I'm like, my question to you is like, in that moment, what's more of what tilts you to make the decision to go one way or the other? How you feel, or how she says, "I'm gonna walk you
This
through
is with
that."
my wife.
Yeah,
Everything with my.
like
All
I
right.
mean, I'm just in that particular situation.
Okay.
What makes you? What make like what's more? What affects you more when you make that decision? How she came at you when she said it, or I guess how you were feeling, like
That's a hell of a question.
right,
That's
like
a
because
hell of a
like
question.
I guess I could see when you kind of know you might mess up, it's
Yeah.
and you know she finna come at you crazy.
Yeah.
All right, you probably like, all right, I'm
All
gonna say
right.
versus you probably like you said, you went. I cooked hard. I'm being considerate. I'm
Yeah.
finally
Yeah.
finna cook, and then she come at you. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like man, this is versus if she come at you like, all right, look, this is all you got to do.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in a
Well, first off, my wife is like a Jedi. She knows some moves. Like she'll hit you with the realness, but she'll make you feel like she'll hit you with the make you feel good about yourself, and then she hit you with the truth, and then it don't feel no you like you're in a place where you're open and listening, right? So she's good with that, and I think and she's amazing with communicating. So like she won't ever like come at me crazy like yo this is trash, like just throwing it like I ain't eating this shit, right? It's never like that, you know what I mean? And but
not the frying pan
just
on
flip it over
stove,
and be like
son.
throw grease on my face and
Clean that
shit,
up,
like
son.
and you know what I mean? I feel for those that have that type of relationship, that's not how it should be. But what I mean, that's a dangerous situation. But I think going back to connecting it with translator success, right? For me, and hopefully it's like showing the dots that connect throughout this whole podcast show. Um, I always surrounded myself around people I can learn from. So whether I was at the courts and I was asking the OGs how to do certain moves and asking them for advice when I do certain things. I always asked my coach on relationship advice when I was growing up. When I asked those smart kids, people that know better than me, and I took that to heart. And I had some trials and tribulations. I wasn't the best, like um, I couldn't read. I wasn't the best reader of people, right? And I had some bad relationships before and things that didn't work out, right? And I wasn't the best, communicator as well. But I got to the point where I made a decision and I wanted to be with someone that I could constantly learn from, right? So when I found my wife, I knew immediately. I was one of those crazy dudes that I knew she was the one the moment. And it sounds crazy. It was just that when I first met her, she represented what I wanted to be around. She looked the part, she acted the part, she demanded respect when she entered the room. I was like, ooh, that I want that around me. Whether it was a friendship, relationship, or whatever.
Right.
And that's how it was when you're trying to get around that and you're not on that level, which I was not. I just graduated college. I'm in a new environment, and she was a grown woman because although um, she was still in college, she's from a different country. My wife is from Trinidad and Tobago, and she came out. She graduated high school when she was 16. She came out here when she was 19, and she had already a couple years of working experience in the country. And then when she came out here, she her story is crazy. Like she came out here and her aunt she had an aunt that was a doctor, and her aunt told her that she can live with her and get a green card, this and that. She was the only one of her siblings that was able to get the green card on time. And she got it. She didn't want to leave her country. She ended up going, and the aunt said, "You can stay with me in Long Island, in my nice place in New York, and you can work on being a dentist." Right? Well, she gets in the airport, and 10 plus years later, she still has not seen the woman. So she had to go and figure out life, right? So she was living on couch to couch, uh, uh, like distant family, friends, and in New York City, right? And figuring that out. So like that experience, like she was grown. I met her when she was 24. So she was like grown and she's like going through life. She had experience. Me, I was fresh out the bubble of
Mm.
college, right? I was wide eyed. I was like, I knew life, but I had no idea, right? And then, but when I met her, I was like, I need that aura around me. I need to learn from that. Whether she's gonna be a friend or whatever, I was willing to strike out. So I just got close to her. We became friends. She actually put me on dates with other people, and we actually we actually were cool. And then it just um, I became attracted to her, right? No, I became attractive to her, right? And through things that happened, and we were able to show each other's true colors and this and that, and it worked out. But I put myself in a situation where I can always learn from the person. And I surround myself around people like that are constantly open minded, people that are willing to grow, right? And expand their minds. And that's what I'm about, and that's what I've always been about. And I would advise everybody if you want to be able to get to this place of continuing to do this type of work of translating your success in any career is surround yourself around those people that have the same mentality as you, right? And understanding, right? And for me, it was like, why not marry that? So like I wake up to it, I go to sleep next to it, I'm around it, and I'm telling you, my wife checks me, and I need that. Like she's a little bit older than me. She's 3 years older than me, but like, and she has more experience, and I'm starting to catch up now. We've been together a couple years now, and I've experienced life. Like life has been hitting me, and I'm figuring it out. but she's been there, and we learning together. And she's always like, when I'm wrong about something, I need people to tell me that I'm wrong. I don't want yes people around me because that's not how you grow. You know what I mean? And I don't want to, what I mean? A lot of successful people that had yes people around them stopped growing to a certain point, right? Because they started building this idea in their head that they're this certain type of person that can't be told anything. And I don't want to be there. You know what I mean? I want to continuously grow, so why not be with a person like that? So when my wife comes at me, it's always a place of me like willing to learn and willing to grow. And don't get me wrong, I am flawed, very flawed. So I'm gonna say this again: I am not perfect, but I do have my moments where I'm triggered, like, and it's all about communicating that. Like you have to get to a place where you can communicate. Okay, that bothered me, or the way you came at me like that is not something that would work for me, right? And get into that place of communicating what works and what doesn't work. But um, with my wife, I I get those moments, but I always go back to that. Like I I need to learn. I don't. I'm starting to cook. I can't take this person. I had a couple good meals.
Hmm.
I can't be thinking I'm like, you know, Chef Boyardee out here. So, and I can't learn. So I'm always looking like that. And even with my craft, like with my speaking business, I'm always surrounding myself around people that do it. And even like you guys, like with this whole um, APR business y'all got going on, production company, media company that you got going on. I'm learning. I'm learning how to do podcasts. Obviously, like we started the podcast, I butchered the name at the beginning. I'm like nervous how to start a podcast. Like we sit here for like 5 minutes thinking about how we gonna sit, how we gonna intro this. I had never started a podcast, so like, but here I am. I just jumped. I jumped in the water. We look like fools at the beginning. I look like a fool at the beginning, and I'm cool with that. You see, for me, I'm cool with looking back at this footage and being like, damn, that's where I started from. You know what I mean? And look at where I'm at now, and I'm building that discipline in me to build that confidence, right? So
Mhm.
like in episode 30 or 100, I'm like on the mic, like no flaws, like
I'm sure
like
it'll
no
come
slip
soon.
ups. You know what
It'll
I
be
mean?
sooner than that. So
Yeah,
it ain't gonna take
yeah.
30.
But I'm just saying, for example,
Nah, I
like
feel you.
I'm callousing
Yeah.
my skills right now. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And callousing. I heard this by David Goggins. He talked about callousing his mind. I keep saying that where he's he was in the military, and he's a great motivational speaker too. And he talks about the process of callousing your mind, like you work out. So building that discipline. So yeah.
So like, what's what's it like being like a motivational speaker? Like,
Yeah.
because for me, I guess I think about how does a motivational speaker manage success?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, do you really say, okay, how many people came up to me and said I'm motivated now,
Yeah.
or how many people maybe invest in your merchandise or stuff like that, like because it's a business as well as a passion.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's like hard for me, you know what I mean, to like to 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 see how how you're able to
Yeah.
work with both.
Yeah, that's a good question. With motivational speaking, I said it on your podcast, the sit down, where how I got started getting called back from colleges, didn't know it was a profession. I did a lot of work on my college campus at SUNY Cortland, where I was a part of a bunch of clubs. I spoke. I was a multicultural life intern. I did, and I spoke at my graduation, my Kente graduation. I didn't know it was a profession until I did my research and said like, oh, but I think the idea of like there's you got to get one person right in the room that you can affect like or impact right um someone's listening and I know that's tough because at the beginning I was like yo like one person like I don't want to just get one person I want my impact to be good like bigger than that right But I think it's all about getting yourself to a place um, where, you know, it's bigger than you. Like, you know what I mean? And that comes from experience. And it's crazy because I started very young with speaking. I have like 5, 6 years of speak. No, with starting my brand, I have 5 years, but like I have like 10 years of like speaking in front of crowds and doing like 10 plus years doing that type of work and making an impact. But and like starting out, I think it's just like everything else. Like you just gotta jump, right? You'll figure it out. Like you just gotta discipline your skill. You gotta callous your skill and your ability. Nobody's gonna start out first like you speak in front of. Nobody's gonna be thrown to 1,000 people and you're like you're gonna kill it first time ever. Now that takes time, and I think like practicing and preparing and knowing what you're talking about and being and having experience about it, being able to tell stories about it, connecting the dots for people through different stages in your life, where you can make more of a connection with people. Because when you're speaking to big crowds, you want to hit spaces or places where people could be like, "Oh, I've been there. I know what that's like. I know that feeling," right? But you don't get that without experiencing life, without feeling what it is to be depressed, what it feels like not to want to get up, not want to do stuff, failing, and then what do you do after that? You can't talk about these things without experiencing it. And I think when you start experiencing it, you become better. Like you can. I was talking about a lot of stuff that I I experienced a little bit, but not to the full extent. And you can kind of like feel that in my speaking engagements. Like older people would be like, right? But like now I've hit that level. Like I know what that feels like. So like when I talk, there's a confidence behind it. Like it's just like I know what I'm talking about. I'm not giving you any bullshit. Like I'm here telling you that this is what happened to me. And from my experience, I could connect with your experience. It doesn't have to be the same, but it could translate the same type of things that we could do to move on from that. And I think that's what I've gotten to with the loss of my father. My father committed suicide January 10th, right? He ended up passing away January 12th, but he committed suicide January 10th. Um, and this year, 2019. And with that, a whole world of emotions and experiences has hit me in a whole different way. Like I said, I had many years of experience speaking in front of big crowds, in front of small crowds, um, doing the work constantly, working on my craft, building my brand. I had an idea of what I knew what I was doing. But when this happened, like I'm telling you, like I felt things that I've never felt before. Like my wife was telling me the other day, it's like this is the first time you actually like real depressed. And my wife knows what that feeling is, like coming from where she came from, and then having to figure it out in a new country, new city, by yourself. Um, you know what I mean? She felt those moments. And at times I was this optimistic type of guy, like, oh, like you can do it, just push and whatever. And but I didn't really know. And when my father passed, like it hit me like a crazy, and I couldn't get away from it. And I got moments where I just want to stay in bed all day. I don't want to get up. Motivation ain't working for me. Um, you know, things that usually work for me don't work. I don't want to work out. I don't want to. I don't want to eat. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. I don't want to talk about it. Right. And that's a big thing. Getting to a place of identifying that and then working through that, through these. And once again, that was 6 or 7 months ago. And the reason why I'm able to talk about it now because I've done the work and I'm doing the work. I've gone to therapy. I've been at KIP. I was the restorative justice coordinator and doing the restorative justice work, restorative practices with doing conflict resolution and talking about what's going on with you and identifying the root cause of your issues is what I worked and built at KIP. I kind of used that work while I was at KIP to save my life, right? So I was not only doing it at home, I was going to work, and that was my job. I was getting in circle with kids, and I was teaching kids how to be vulnerable and use vulnerability as power, and be able to, um, not care what other people think, but being able to communicate what's going on with you. You know what I mean? So that you can identify it. The more you speak about it, the more you identify it, the more you build that confidence in yourself uh, to like know who you are, what you're about. So I was doing that constantly, teaching the kids, built the curriculum, built the program from scratch at Kip Houston High School. Um, and 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 while I was doing that, I was going home. I was using the restorative practices to deal with my wife, to work with my daughter, to work with my family, and and friends, and it kind of like, you know, I I built this experience. I got this experience of like that I've never had before that helps me connect with people on a whole nother level. And I think my situation is pretty extreme now, whereas, you know, people may not have lost someone the way I had, or they may have, but I know what that feels like now.
Yeah.
I mean, and it took me to the other side, and it's making me a better speaker. And I think you work throughout your whole career to get to this point of being able to connect with people like that. And sometimes you just have to go through life.
How has speaking changed for you, prior to the experience you had?
Oh,
Like when you, because like you were speaking prior
yeah,
to
yeah,
actually having that personal impact,
yeah, yeah.
and then like when you think about like your first speech after that, or your first speaking engagement after that,
I
like
knew it was different
how, yeah, how was it different? Uh,
because, like I said at the beginning, it's not about me anymore. Before it was about me. It was about building my brand. It's about building who I am, what I'm about, how I look. The first engagement I did was at New Visions of Humanities in Bronx, New York, um, and I did an empowerment program for boys, um, and it was the first time that I've spoken since the passing of my father. This was in June, and it was on my birthday, June 14th, 2019. Um, and it just, I prepared, obviously, I knew what I was going to talk about, but just doing it just felt so different because it wasn't like there was no script, there was no, it was not a presentation, it was not a show anymore. It was like real. Like I felt like I was having a conversation with people. Um, and once I felt that, I was just like, you know what I mean? Because everything connected even more to me now because I feel this work that I do with restorative practices could have saved my father's life. So with that, when I'm talking, like it's not about me. It's not about how my image is not. I don't give a damn about that. I care more about the message that I'm relaying because I really believe if my father had learned these skills that I'm teaching people to use to become better individuals, it would have saved my father's life early on. He had a lot of trauma in his life that he never learned how to deal with. He never gained those skills to deal and address with his trauma properly at an earlier age, because that's where it starts. You know what I mean? We build up to be adults, and we cover up a lot. The sooner you can get those skills, the easier it'll be to deal with it as you get older. And I really believe my father could have benefited from it. So like when I come in with that idea and everything just goes out the window, like I feel like I'm talking to people now more than ever. Um, so my engagements are very interactive. Like I get people. Like I said, I think people learn by doing. So I get people moving. I get people talking to each other. Um, I do storytelling. I do um, demonstrations. You've seen my water exercise a couple times. And I do all my presentations. You know what I mean? The last one I did was last week in New York. Same school, New Visions High School. This time it was a 2-day PD retreat for teachers. And I did the first day, um, my regular engagement where I'm doing like getting people moving, me talking, telling my story, connecting the dots, my program, and then getting people to do the activities to learn while they're doing. And then the second day was like doing circles and actually practicing,
mm-hmm.
right? And then it was them doing like the work, and I'm just standing back, and I'm like, damn. Like I had like three teachers um, in that seminar that I did in that PD, like cry, break down, crying because I had this activity called dyads where you go knee to knee with someone, um, real uncomfortable, right? And then you look them in the eye. You're supposed to you're supposed to think about a conversation you should have had with someone or you need to have with someone, right? And you look at them face to face and you're trying to tell them and you're building your confidence to not care who's listening. You're trying to get it off your chest. So you're practicing, you're disciplining yourself. While the person who's listening is not working on reacting. You can't agree, you can't disagree, you can't show any emotion in your face. You're focusing on listening so that because a lot of times, like I found with my wife, like she talks to me sometimes, and sometimes I find myself agreeing and nodding, and then sometimes I forget what she's like said 2 words earlier, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to piece together what she's saying, and then not, you know what I mean? But it comes from me focusing on giving her confirmation that I'm listening rather than actually listening, right? So if you just take that all out, the nodding, the movement, or reacting to what is being said, and just focus on listening, you can show that person that you're listening by repeating what they just said, right? So we focused on that. The listener was doing that, and while they were doing that, like teachers were just breaking down. That's where it hit me, like, damn, this is beneficial. Like it wasn't anybody. People came up to me and said, "Oh, thank you, whatever," but that didn't mean more to me than people engaging in activities. Right. So both days in the PD, people was actually engaged, not with me, with each other, and that's where it hit me. Like, damn, this is like different. This is
Hmm.
beneficial. Like I can see the work. So that's what I enjoy, and that's what I'm doing it for now. Yeah.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah, I know I went off on a tangent right there, but
Nah,
anyway,
that's the
um,
point.
yeah. So
Yeah.
got to get used to this podcast. Once again, this is episode number one, translating success.
Numero
Right,
uno.
I'm a
One of
work
many.
one of many. I'm gonna work on not butchering my boy's name.
Yeah.
And starting the intro. That was just a bunch of nerves, to be honest. Like I said, I'm glad it happened so that we can actually see it. We started off a little rough and then see where we end up going. So that's the whole point of it. Actually goes with our whole premise of the show. So I guess that's it right there. We'll be back every week. Try to do a show a week and continue this going. Just talking about translating success. Have people come on from time to time. We discuss things that's happening with us and certain current events or whatever. And you know what I mean.
You
And
got
just
business coming up, man.
yes,
Yeah,
business.
where can people see you coming up next?
Okay, so as I said, once again, my name is Carlos J. Malave. Um, I'm I'm an author. My book Translated Success is on Amazon. You can purchase it there. I'm everywhere on Instagram is my biggest platform. CJ Motivation, and on LinkedIn and Facebook and everything else. YouTube, Carlos J. Malave. Don't forget the J in between. So I speak at colleges and high schools across the country. Um, I just came back from New York last week where I did the 2 day retreat for PD for teachers at New Visions for Humanities High School. You can find me on any of my social media sites. You go to my website, cjmotivation.com, and I have a form that you can fill out to like or email me for like coming up for events and collabing on stuff. To do that, I'm doing a couple events coming up out here in Houston at a conference. I'm doing a couple conferences, but I'm going to be headlining a conference soon. Can't give away all the details, but that's coming up soon. I'm speaking. Oh, one for sure. September 13th. Audia Jones. She is running for district attorney, and she's having a luncheon on September 13th from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And I will be speaking at that event um, about the school to prison pipeline and how that connects to the criminal justice reform that Audia Jones is working on and campaigning on. And she's phenomenal. We connect, and the mall. I met her at the mall with Dre. We were doing an event, and she was there, and we connected instantly, and she's phenomenal. I would definitely. She has my support 100%. But we're doing this event. A lot of what she does and what I do connects. So, like I said, she does criminal justice reform, and I do restorative practices and restorative justice within schools. And it's all about, connecting that together. So, school to prison pipeline is what I've been working with, ending that. And that leads into what she's trying to change as well, criminal justice, right? Criminal justice reform, where, you know, changing what is already there and trying to change the narrative. So that's what we're working on together. September 13th, I have that on my social media platforms. You can get the dates. I'm constantly posting about that and where it is and all that. So yeah.
That's what's up, man.
And then we got a bunch of stuff coming up. Me and Dre are working on a
Oh
couple
yeah.
of projects as well. Dre is the guy behind the scenes. He definitely is someone that's grinding full time. He always hit me up with ideas and people that he thinks I could connect with. So I really appreciate, and that's what I'm talking about. You guys surround yourself around people like that. Me and Dre been cool since we worked at Yes Prep a couple years ago, and I remember when this was just an idea. Like I wrote the book while I was at Yes Prep.
Yeah.
In between classes
For
at lunch
showing,
breaks,
yeah,
I had him reading. I
reading.
had him reading chapters like, "Yo, D, you think this is good?"
Yeah.
Like, what I mean, I had kids reading chapters, so we were like grinding, and he was coming up with a couple ideas of what he wanted to do beyond working at schools. And we just had conversations. Now for this to come to fruition is pretty dope.
Yeah,
And the best is yet to come, man. I appreciate you, and I
for
appreciate
sure, man.
you doing this with me. I know this
Yeah.
has been a while. Like I said, he been telling me to do about a
Yeah.
podcast for the longest.
Talking like you might as well,
Yeah,
son.
yeah, yeah. So
For real.
yeah, and he's a character,
Gotta
man.
record
Like
it.
we have a bunch
I
of
have no idea what this man is talking
nah. This
about.
man, like we was
I'm chilling, man.
sometimes we were like
I'm
we were
chilling.
talking in the gym or we were
Son,
talking
remember
at
when we
lunch.
was hooping when they were trying to have a meeting?
Oh my God! Like we
And we was
straight.
gonna finish that
Yeah,
game.
we straight. We'd
We was
hoop
gonna finish
whenever.
that game.
You know how, and you know how I knew he was real because it was like, yo. I was like, yo, you hooping? It was like, yo, I always got shorts and sneakers in the car. What you mean? I always got my ball in the truck. So I was like, oh, I
Yeah.
like he for real, he for real. So we always hooping, we always laughing, and connected. But it's we also know how to switch it up and have business. So I appreciate you, Jay.
For sure.
And we got the best coming. So I think it was the best person to co-host with. You know what I mean? To have these conversations, two different perspectives, but similar mindsets when it comes to like ambition and success and all of that. So like I said, surround yourself around people that are on the same path you on mentally. So yeah, thank y'all. I appreciate y'all, and I look forward to having you guys along the ride and growing this together. Thank y'all.